Okay, here's the for most of my 23 years, that house, just outside the city, has been my anchor. It was my grandparents' place, and after Mom died when I was 11 and Dad was always working, they really became my everything. They were truly amazing people. Even after they passed, a few years ago now, it felt natural to stay. Mom was an only child, just like me, so when my grandparents were gone, everything, the house, a little bit of money, even Grandpa's old truck, came to me. It was comforting, familiar. Then Dad started dating Alicia. She's younger and has 2 kids, a boy and a girl, aged 6 and 8. I thought she was pretty cool when I first met her. The kids are a handful, always running around, but generally good kids. After a few months, maybe 6 or so, Dad asked if they could move in. The house is big, more than enough room for everyone, and I thought, why not? It felt like it could be nice, having a bit more life in the house. For a while, it actually was. Then Alicia got pregnant. That's when things started to subtly shift. Dad proposed, which I expected. They seemed so happy together. But almost immediately after, Alicia started dropping hints. Little comments about how I should start thinking about my future living arrangements because they'd need my room for the baby. Then she started mentioning wanting her mom to move in to help with the baby and her kids. It felt like I was slowly being pushed out. The worst part was she didn't know that the house was mine. Dad hadn't told her. He kept avoiding the subject, like it was a big secret. The whole thing finally exploded when Alicia outright suggested I move into her apartment in the city. She'd give me a good deal on rent, she said, while I finished my degree. It all came to a head one weekend when Dad was home. Alicia was going on and on about nursery colors, and then she just turned to me and said, "You should really start packing, you know." That was it. Something snapped. I just told her, calmly, that the house was mine. That it had been passed down to me from my grandparents, and I wasn't going anywhere. The look on her face was priceless. Total shock, then disbelief. I suggested that maybe Dad could use some of his savings to buy a new place for their growing family. He has a good amount set aside, and they could even sell her apartment to help with the down payment. Alicia did not like that idea at all. She got really angry. The whole situation is a mess. She turned on me, accusing me of deliberately trying to undermine their plans and destroy her chance to build equity in her apartment. My apartment, really. It spiraled into a mess I never anticipated. Dad, bless his heart, tried to smooth things over, but he ended up making it worse. He even suggested, gently, that perhaps it was time I considered striking out on my own. The audacity! I couldn't believe he was taking her side against his own daughter. That sparked a huge argument, where I reminded him, perhaps too emotionally, of everything our family had endured, all the memories tied up in this house, what it meant to me as a link to our past. Now, Alicia sees me as the villain, the one disrupting their happily ever after scenario. She's been giving me the cold shoulder ever since, and even worse, her kids, who used to practically live in my space, are now kept away. It hurts. Dad's stuck in the middle, desperately trying to play peacemaker, but it's just not working. The whole situation has me completely stressed out and, to be honest, a little lonely. It's such a strange feeling, like I'm an unwelcome guest in the only home I've ever truly known. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this without creating a permanent family rift, but it feels almost impossible. Right now, I feel like I'm standing on a crumbling bridge, desperately trying to hold the pieces together before it all collapses. And to think, all of this started because she seemed to believe Dad was her ticket to a comfortable future, a retirement plan of sorts funded by him. It seemed she thought he was older and wealthy, and she could get away with expecting more from him, but her vision shattered the moment she realized that he didn't own the house. The nerve of thinking to kick me out and then offer her old living arrangements at a discount is beyond me. Dad has picked a fine one, apparently not having the nerve to stand up to her, and he's in for a treat. And for the record, she wanted a place without me. Now she can have one. I don't know if I was the idiot for some comments before this whole update, but it's too bad now. Don't get with a woman so much younger than you if you're not ready to pick up the tab for your future children. It was manageable, my life. I could make some sacrifices and still have a reasonably comfortable life. But then my stepmother, Alicia, and my dad started subtly pushing me, trying to nudge me out of my house. The house I'd been generous enough to let them, along with her kids, live in rent-free. The first thing I did, on advice from a friend, was call a lawyer. I knew, deep down, that legally evicting them could be a nightmare, much more complex than I'd imagined. Apparently, in some places, even a short-term guest can become a legal tenant, even if they never contribute a dime. I never anticipated things spiraling this out of control. After our initial confrontation about the house, I naively hoped things would calm down, but they only intensified. Almost immediately after I revealed the house was legally mine, Alicia and my dad had a monumental fight. She was furious he'd kept the truth about the house from her all this time. She felt utterly blindsided and betrayed, convinced he'd deliberately hidden it. Their relationship became incredibly strained. The tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. One evening, Alicia cornered me in the kitchen, her frustration finally exploding. She ranted about how unfair it was that she and her kids were living in someone else's house, how Dad had led her to believe they were building a life together in a home that was supposed to be theirs. I stood my ground, reminding her that this had been my grandparents' house, my mother's house, and I wasn't going to be bullied out. The very next day, my dad confronted me. He looked worn, utterly exhausted, caught between his new family and his own daughter. He pleaded with me to reconsider moving out, insisting it would make everything easier for everyone. I was stunned, hurt beyond words, feeling completely deserted by him. I told him, maybe a bit too emotionally, that this house was my home, my last tangible connection to my mom and my grandparents, and I refused to leave. Then came his reaction, something I never saw coming. He actually blamed me for the conflict in his relationship with Alicia. He said that if I hadn't been so stubborn and simply agreed to leave, none of this would be happening. It was like a physical blow, and I couldn't believe he was turning on me like this. Feeling completely overwhelmed and panicked, I doubled down on my original plan, to seek proper legal advice. I consulted a family lawyer who reassured me that as the legal owner, I had every right to stay and to make decisions about who lived here. It gave me a small measure of peace, but the atmosphere at home remained poisonous. Then came the final bombshell. Alicia packed up her belongings and took her kids to stay with her mother. She left a terse note saying she couldn't live in a house where she wasn't wanted and that my dad needed to choose between his daughter and his new family. My dad, predictably, was devastated and placed all the blame squarely on my shoulders, claiming I had driven Alicia and her children away. I felt more alone than ever. It was Dad's last-ditch idea, his supposed solution to everything: sell the house, split the money. He presented it as some kind of fresh start, a way to magically mend things with Alicia. My jaw dropped. This house, it wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the last tangible piece of my grandparents, a repository of countless childhood memories. There was no way I was selling. I made that perfectly clear. Cornered, I think, and desperate, he lashed out. He said if I refused to sell, he'd cut me out of his life completely, move in with Alicia and her mother, and never look back. He even accused me of being selfish, of single-handedly ruining his happiness. In that moment, I saw it so clearly. He was choosing. And it wasn't me. I told him, my voice shaking but firm, that he was free to leave if that's what he truly wanted, but I wouldn't be bullied into giving up my home. He didn't hesitate. That very evening, he packed a bag and walked out the door, heading straight to Alicia's. The house is so much quieter now, echoing with a silence that's both peaceful and unsettling. It's mine again, at least. The emotional impact has been brutal. I feel a profound sadness, a deep ache for the relationship I've lost with my father, but underneath it all, there's a strange sense of relief. The constant arguments, the underlying tension, it's all gone. Uncle Mark has been my rock through this, offering both a shoulder to cry on and practical help with everything from leaky faucets to legal paperwork. I'm throwing myself into my studies, trying to rebuild my life in a way that feels authentic, free from the negativity that Dad and Alicia brought. It's incredibly difficult. Some days feel almost impossible, but I know, deep down, that I made the right decision, for myself and for the memory of my grandparents. I'm so grateful for all the support I've received. Your words, your encouragement, it's been a lifeline during this storm. I hope my experience can serve as a reminder to others. Sometimes, the hardest thing you can do, the most essential act, is standing up for yourself and protecting your inner peace. Just when I thought things couldn't possibly get any more complicated, Dad resurfaced with an even more outrageous demand. The past few weeks have been a blur, a constant emotional roller coaster, but this latest twist has left me reeling. After Alicia packed up her things and moved out with her kids, and Dad went to live with them at her mother's, I actually started to feel like things were finally settling down. The house was calm, I could concentrate on my schoolwork, and begin to piece my life back together. But then, last week, Dad showed up, completely unannounced. He looked exhausted, worn down, the strain of his new living situation etched into every line of his face. He asked if we could talk, and despite everything that had happened, a small part of me still wanted to believe in him, so I agreed. We sat down in the living room, the atmosphere thick with unspoken resentment and hurt. He started by apologizing, stammering out a series of regrets about how things had spiraled out of control, saying he never intended for our relationship to fall apart like this. And then he dropped the bomb. He wanted to know if Alicia and her children could move back into the house. He claimed that living at her mother's was unbearable, overcrowded, and that they desperately needed more space, especially with the baby on the way. I was completely stunned. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. After everything, the avalanche of lies, the calculated manipulation, the sting of his betrayal, he actually had the audacity to ask me to let them move back in. A slow, deliberate breath filled my lungs as I looked him in the eye and said, calmly but firmly, no, I explained, carefully choosing my words, that my life, my home, needed to be a place of stability and peace. Their presence, I argued, would only reignite the chaos and conflict that had finally started to fade. The air in the room visibly shifted. My father's expression hardened, the pleasant facade crumbling to reveal a familiar anger. He lashed out, his voice rising in accusation, painting me as unforgiving, selfish even. I was supposedly putting my own trivial needs above the needs of the family, ruining his chance at happiness, he claimed. I held my ground, reminding him, clearly and distinctly, that this was my house. I had every right to decide who lived within these walls. Then came the ultimatum, a weapon wielded in a moment of desperate rage. My father, his face red with fury, threatened to disown me if I refused to open my home to Alicia and her children. He declared that if I couldn't support his new family, he wanted nothing more to do with me. He demanded a choice, laid bare, let them back into the house, or he would sever all ties, cutting me out of his life completely. His words struck me like a physical blow. A storm of emotions churned within me, anger, of course, but also a profound sadness and a disbelief that he could be so cruel. Despite the turmoil, a sense of clarity emerged. I couldn't allow myself to be bullied or manipulated into a decision that would shatter my well-being. I'm sorry you feel that way, I told him, my voice surprisingly steady, but my answer is still no. I wouldn't sacrifice the peace I had fought so hard to achieve, wouldn't betray the legacy of my grandparents for his unreasonable demands. He stared at me, his eyes a mixture of shock and raw fury, before turning sharply and stalking out of the house. I watched him leave, a profound sense of loss settling in my chest, yet also a firm conviction that I had made the only possible choice. It was painfully clear that our relationship had reached a breaking point. While the hurt was undeniable, I knew, deep down, that I had to prioritize my own mental health, my own future. In the days that followed, I received a handful of bitter, accusatory messages from Alicia, branding me as heartless and cruel. But surprisingly, I also received an outpouring of support from my great-uncle, close friends, and even some distant relatives who were only now beginning to understand the full extent of what had been happening. It's been incredibly difficult, but I'm pouring all my energy into my studies, focusing on the future I'm building for myself. This house is my sanctuary, the walls echoing with the love and memories of my grandparents, and I'm determined to honor their memory by living a life they would be proud of. Thank you to everyone who has offered their unwavering support and encouragement. Your words have been a lifeline during these trying times. I hope my story serves as a reminder that it's okay, essential, even, to set boundaries and stand up for yourself, even when faced with incredibly difficult choices and immense family pressure. Here's to moving forward with strength, resilience, and the courage to protect our peace and well-being. Update 3. I can barely believe I'm writing another update, but life just keeps throwing these curveballs my way. This time, the situation has taken an even more shocking turn. A few days ago, I received an urgent message from my dad. Alicia had given birth to my half-brother. The news hit me in waves, a strange mix of happiness and unease. A new baby in the family should be joyful, right? But all I could feel was the old tension, the weight of unresolved issues that still hung heavy between us. Not long after the baby's arrival, Alicia called me. Her voice was thick with emotion, almost desperate. She launched into a detailed account of how impossible their current situation was, especially with a newborn. She kept repeating how Dad's constant back and forth was draining him, that it couldn't go on. But her main plea was for her son, my half-brother, to have a calm, stable environment, away from the city's relentless chaos. Then came the proposition. They wanted to move back into the house with me. This time, she assured me, things would be different. She claimed to finally understand how I felt. She even said I could stay, that they would respect my space, my boundaries. She painted this idyllic picture of a harmonious family, all coexisting peacefully for the sake of the baby. My heart ached for my little half-brother, but I couldn't shake the memory of the past, the manipulative games, the emotional roller coaster they'd put me through before. It was a lot to process, so I told Alicia I needed a day to think it over. That evening, I talked to my great-uncle. He's always been a voice of reason for me, a grounding presence. He reminded me, gently but firmly, of the importance of protecting my own well-being, my own peace of mind. He urged me to consider the potential consequences, to really think about what I was opening myself up to. After a night of tossing and turning, a lot of agonizing soul-searching, I realized he was right. Allowing them back in felt like inviting all that old drama, all that negativity, back into my life, the very things I had worked so hard to escape. The next day, I called Alicia and Dad. I tried to explain, calmly, why I couldn't agree to their request. I told them that while I truly cared about my half-brother and wanted the best for him, the history of manipulation, the years of emotional turmoil, made it impossible for me to welcome them back into my home. Dad, predictably, exploded. He accused me of being selfish, heartless. He said I was punishing them for past mistakes, denying my half-brother a better life. Alicia, though more controlled, was clearly disappointed. She tried to guilt me, suggesting I was depriving the baby of a tranquil upbringing. Despite their emotional onslaught, I held my ground. I reiterated that my decision was final, that I couldn't sacrifice my own mental health and stability. I even offered to help them find another place, suggesting a few affordable options that were within a reasonable distance from the city. Dad's reaction was, as expected, harsh. He repeated his threat to disown me, said I'd regret my decision. Alicia, on the other hand, seemed to accept my refusal with a heavy sigh, but she made it clear she thought I was making a terrible mistake. Since then, I've tried to focus on rebuilding my peace, my routine, and burying myself in my studies. It's the only way I know how to move forward. The weight of my decision has settled on me, heavy but right, a necessary burden. My friends have been anchors in this storm, their support a lifeline I desperately needed. Life feels like a kaleidoscope of swirling emotions, but I'm slowly learning to navigate the turbulence, finding reserves of strength I didn't know I possessed. This house, it's more than just bricks and mortar. It's my sanctuary, a physical embodiment of my journey, my growth, my unwavering commitment to building a better future for myself. Thank you, truly, for all the support and encouragement. Your words have been a beacon, guiding me through these incredibly difficult times. I hope my story can, in some small way, inspire others to stand firm in their own convictions, to prioritize their own well-being, even when faced with the complexities and heartache of difficult family situations. I raise a metaphorical glass to moving forward, with courage, with resilience, and with the unwavering belief that I deserve to live in peace and harmony. Update 4. Honestly, I never imagined there'd be another twist to the saga, but here we are. Just when I thought the shockwaves had subsided, life decided to unleash another bomb. This latest development is something I genuinely never saw coming, not even in my wildest dreams. A few weeks after I firmly refused Dad and Alicia's request to move back into my house, the audacity, I received a call from him. His voice, it was strained, more distressed than I'd ever heard him. He asked if we could meet, face to face, to discuss something important. Despite everything, the hurt, the betrayal, a small part of me still wanted to hear him out, so I agreed. We met at a small, quiet cafe on the edge of town, and what he revealed left me completely, utterly speechless. He told me that he and Alicia were getting divorced. Apparently, Alicia had been playing him all along, using him as a walking, talking ATM. He said she'd pressured him into spending a ridiculous amount of his savings on her extravagant lifestyle and her children, all while secretly planning to leave him the moment she'd bled him dry. The final straw, he explained, came when he discovered she'd been siphoning money directly from his accounts, planning to flee with her kids and the new baby, leaving him with nothing. He'd confronted her with the evidence, and she hadn't even bothered to deny it. Instead, she turned cold, manipulative, blaming him for everything, saying that if he'd provided more, she wouldn't have been forced to take such drastic measures. The realization that Alicia had been a gold digger from the start hit him hard, like a physical blow. Amidst this whole chaotic confession, Dad actually apologized to me. He admitted he'd been blinded by his infatuation with Alicia, that he'd made terrible decisions that had deeply hurt our relationship. He said he regretted siding with her, pressuring me to leave my home, and not believing me when I tried to warn him about her. He seemed genuinely, sincerely remorseful, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a flicker of the Dad I used to know, the one who loved me unconditionally. He asked if there was any chance, any possibility, that we could start to rebuild our relationship. He confessed that he felt completely lost and didn't know how to move forward without my support. It was a lot to take in, a tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. I told him I needed time to process everything, time to think, time to decide if I could even consider forgiving him. Alicia. I still shudder at the sound of her name. During the divorce, she tried to grab everything she could, claiming she deserved half of Dad's assets, even trying to stake a claim on my house. It's legally mine, a fact that seemed to mean nothing to her. And then there was the baby. She was demanding full custody of my half-brother, using him as a pawn, a bargaining chip to squeeze more money out of Dad. It made me sick. I remember Dad's lawyer presenting evidence in court, evidence of Alicia's manipulation and, more disturbingly, financial abuse. It was overwhelming. Thankfully, the court saw through her facade and sided with Dad. The settlement she received was modest, nothing near the exorbitant amount she was after. Dad was granted joint custody, and he's determined to be the best father he can be to that little boy, despite everything. Alicia, meanwhile, packed up and moved back to the city with her kids. Dad was left to navigate the wreckage of their marriage. The whole experience has been emotionally draining. I've agreed to give Dad another chance to try and rebuild our relationship. It's going to take time, patience, and a lot of effort from both of us. He stayed with a friend for a while, figuring out how to move forward, how to rebuild his life. As for me, I've thrown myself back into my studies, focusing on my future. The house, it remains my sanctuary, my safe place, a constant in a world that suddenly felt so unstable. This whole ordeal has taught me the invaluable lesson of standing my ground and prioritizing my own well-being, regardless of the personal cost. I'm so grateful for the unwavering support I've received. Your kind words have been a lifeline during these incredibly challenging times. I hope my story can serve as a reminder that we are all capable of overcoming adversity and creating a better future for ourselves. So, here's to resilience, fresh starts, and the strength to keep moving forward, no matter what life throws our way. Update 5. Well, life is full of surprises, isn't it? Just when you think you've weathered the storm, something unexpected happens. And this time, it's good. Truly good. After Alicia left and the divorce was finally over, Dad and I slowly, tentatively, began to rebuild our relationship. He moved in with me temporarily, staying in one of the guest rooms while he tried to sort things out. It wasn't easy at first. There was a lot of awkwardness, a lot of unsaid things hanging in the air. But over time, we started to find a new rhythm, a new normal. He was genuinely remorseful for his mistakes, and we both worked hard to heal the scars of the past. Then, a few months ago, Dad met Laura. She's wonderful, kind, compassionate, and she has this warm presence that immediately made me feel at ease. She's a nurse, and they met while Dad was volunteering at a community health event. Laura has a daughter in college, and they seem to have a really close relationship. Seeing Dad happy again was like a breath of fresh air. I was hopeful, cautiously optimistic. Laura and I have met several times now, and we get along so well. She respects my boundaries and understands how much this house means to me. She was never intrusive, never gave me that prickly feeling of being cornered, and it was obvious she cared deeply for my dad. Their relationship developed quickly, but in a way that felt solid and grounded, a far cry from the whirlwind of drama that surrounded him and Alicia. One evening, Dad asked me to sit down. He wanted to talk about Laura, about how she and her daughter were in a tricky spot financially after Laura helped her daughter with college tuition. He proposed they move in with us, saying it would be beneficial for everyone involved. Mostly, I think he wanted my blessing. I could see how happy Laura made him, how much he longed for this fresh start to work. I agreed, but I had one non-negotiable condition. He had to tell Laura that the house was mine. After Alicia, I couldn't risk any misunderstandings or potential power struggles down the line. Dad agreed immediately, understanding, I think, how crucial that clarity was for my peace of mind. The following evening, we were all together in the living room. Dad took Laura's hand and explained everything, how the house was my grandparents' legacy, how I inherited it, the whole messy history that had led us to this moment. Laura listened, really listened, and when Dad finished, she turned to me with a genuine smile. "Thank you for being so open," she said. "I respect your boundaries and your home, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to live here. I promise to honor this space and support you both." Her words felt sincere, and a knot of anxiety I hadn't even realized I was carrying loosened. Laura and her daughter moved in a week later, and the house filled with a sense of warmth and belonging that had been missing for so long. Surprisingly, living together has been easy. Laura and I have formed a real friendship, and her daughter and I get along wonderfully. Dad is happier than I've seen him in years, and the atmosphere in the house is one of mutual respect and support. This whole experience has been incredibly challenging, but it's also shown me how strong I can be, the importance of forgiving, and the absolute necessity of setting boundaries. I've learned that even after everything falls apart, you can rebuild. Thank you all for your unwavering support and encouragement. Your words were a lifeline during the darkest days. I hope my story continues to encourage others to stand their ground, prioritize their well-being, and believe that things can get better, even after the worst storms. I raise a glass to new beginnings, unexpected blessings, and the strength to face whatever life throws our way with hope and courage. Update 6. Hey everyone! Well, life has thrown another curveball, and this one is exciting. After everything that's happened, I finally have some genuinely good news to share. And because life is never simple, there's also a bit of a twist involving my dad's ex, Alicia. In the past few months, while Dad and I have been slowly piecing our relationship back together and creating a stable home with Laura and her daughter, I met someone. His name is Alex, and he's a software engineer. We met at a mutual friend's party. From the moment our eyes met, there was this incredible connection, and we've been practically inseparable ever since. Alex is truly a remarkable man. He's kind, so understanding, and his support has been unwavering. He knows everything about my past, the complicated dynamics of my family, all the hurdles I've had to clear, and he's been my steadfast anchor through it all. We've become closer with each passing day, and recently, in a moment that felt like pure magic, he asked me to marry him. Of course, I said yes. The thought of marrying him fills me with an overwhelming sense of joy. We're getting married. Planning the wedding has been a whirlwind of excitement and decisions, and I find myself constantly smiling, anticipating this incredible new chapter in my life that we'll build together. Amidst all this wedding bliss, news about Alicia reached me, news that gave me pause. Apparently, after she walked out on my dad, she quickly became involved with another man. From what I've heard, the relationship deteriorated quickly, and now she's supposedly struggling, both with money and her emotional well-being. The man she chose turned out to be controlling and manipulative, leaving her vulnerable and in a difficult spot. It's a strange, unsettling feeling, knowing that Alicia, the woman who once tried to manipulate and exploit my dad and me, is now facing such personal hardship. I won't lie, a small part of me feels like this is some sort of karmic justice, but another, perhaps more empathetic part, feels a pang of sympathy. Despite everything she did, it's difficult to completely disregard her struggles. However, I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to get involved. I've come to understand how vital it is to protect my peace, my happiness, and to focus on building a positive future. My dad has heard about Alicia's predicament as well, and I can see he's wrestling with complicated feelings. He still carries some lingering guilt and a sense of responsibility, which is just the kind of man he is, but ultimately he is wisely committed to his new life with Laura, to the happiness they have cultivated. We discussed it, and we both agree that the wisest course of action is to keep our distance and avoid getting pulled back into Alicia's orbit. As for our family, we are moving forward, stronger than ever. My dad and Laura are incredibly supportive of the wedding plans. We're all actively involved in making sure it's a beautiful and memorable celebration, a truly special day. It feels somewhat surreal, almost dreamlike, to be surrounded by so much genuine love and support, especially after navigating so much turbulence in the past. I cherish it, every single moment.